Hello, everybody. It's 10:30 and let's get started with our session. So once again, thank you very much for joining us for our session on writing clean code. My name is Krishnan and I am the CEO at Geektrust. So I want to give you a little bit of context as to why we are doing this session and who's doing the session. So let me start with a little bit of story about myself. In the year 2005, I joined a company. There were about probably 50 people in that company at that point in time. And the company was special because they somehow amazingly managed to solve big, complex software problems. At that time, they were very well known for doing what were called rescue projects, which is, somebody's come and they've tried to build a project out, they didn't succeed, and my company would get called in. It was not my company, I used to work there. This company would get called in and we would go and help fix it. It was 50 people back then, and over time, I was new there. I realized that what we were doing was nothing magical, but we were very disciplined. We were very disciplined in what we thought was writing good code. For us, the biggest parameter was not if we wrote the code fast, but it was about writing code which we called clean code even back then. It would have unit tests, the classes would be very well defined, the interfaces would be again well defined. Anybody could look at the code and extend on top of it. And we used to follow certain practices. As part of the discipline we had, some of the things were following certain practices. They were called XP practices. And some processes as well that also helped, which were agile processes. This company later on hired people like Martin Fowler, who some of you have heard of, Sam Newman, Jim Highsmith. Can you guess which is the company I'm talking about? Yeah. So this company today is a multi-billion-dollar company called ThoughtWorks, who started out this whole concept of the ability to write good, clean code and how important that is. They brought the focus back to engineers and said, engineers are the ones who are solving the problems. Developers are the ones who are solving problems. As long as developers are allowed to focus on doing it, honing their craft and writing good code, software problems could get solved. So that was the beginning of my introduction to this world of writing clean code. And over time, I spent 10 years there. And 6 years ago, I left ThoughtWorks and started up with Geektrust. Today, in the last 6 years, I have probably spoken to 500 companies. Like I speak to HR teams, I speak to technical teams, from the biggest companies like India's #1 software development firm, TCS, to the smallest of startups. I spoke to a startup yesterday. They have 1 million downloads. There are only 3 people in the technology team. They have 1 million downloads of their app. So the range of where the Indian software tech industry is going is very big, from your multi-billion-dollar TCS to these small startups. When I meet all of them, I always ask, what is important for you, right? What do you care about what the software developers bring to the table? And some of them tell me that it is about, they should be able to solve, complex problems, data structures, algorithms. But the truth is, when I dig deep into it, when you join a company, it's very unlikely that you're going to create complex algorithms from the beginning, right? You are going to join a company where there is already some software and you're building on top of it, making the software better. There are a few cases, maybe 5% or lesser cases, where you go in and build really, really hard algorithms and solve like unique data structure implementations you bring to the table. But in most cases, you are going to go there, you will have an existing piece of code and you will improve that piece of code. And for that, what matters is the ability to write clean code. Dhanush will talk about clean code in a bit, but essentially every single company I go to today tells me that I need people who can quickly develop software which is readable, extendable, and other people can, reuse it, can build on top of it. The truth is, it is not the norm everywhere even today. A lot of interviews still focus on, hey, how do you solve this data structure? How do you solve the algorithm problem? But we are trying to bring about a change. When we go to companies, when we talk to them, we tell them, hey, this is what in the real world, isn't this what it's about? And everybody agrees. Everybody agrees in the real world, it is about writing clean code that matters. And if there was a company which could help them find good developers based on their ability to write clean code, they would work with that company. Fortunately for us, we are that company. So what Geektrust does is we allow developers to showcase their skill and find opportunities with companies. These companies could be early stage startups with less than 3 people, like I said, or it could be companies like TCS with more than 1 lakh people. So we work with a spectrum of companies. The one thing we do make sure at Geektrust is that all these companies have a runway and they are stable. So we do a check on our end to make sure that even if we're working with a startup, the startup can pay you market salaries, has a runway in place, either has revenue or has funding. All that we take care of and make sure you are relevant companies. What you get to do is you don't have to worry about your resume. You don't have to worry about wherever you have studied, or whether you're an engineer even. My own last couple of hires were a chartered accountant and a geologist, and we hired them because their code was just brilliant. The code was great. We gave them an opportunity to come in. They performed very well in the interviews, and we found them jobs. So we start off. What Geektrust is trying to do is we are trying to help fulfill their potential, people's potential, based on your actual real world skill, and not based on where you studied or where you're working today. Right? That is the idea behind Geektrust. It's a hard change to make in the industry. Recruitment is a very, very archaic, bureaucratic industry, but we are making a dent there slowly but surely. The last thing I want to say before I hand it over to Dhanush is one of my favorite stories of all time at Geektrust is this developer who wrote into us saying that he came from his hometown in Gujarat to Bangalore, and for about 6 months he couldn't find a job. He couldn't find a job because his English was poor. His English was poor. He would get on a call with the first round of recruitment with the recruiters and he would get rejected, right? Because he couldn't articulate himself clearly. Then by luck or fate, he found Geektrust. He wrote code and his code was better than his English, right? It really doesn't matter whether your English is good or doesn't matter. The code was great. Based on the code, he got interviewed by multiple startups, and today he's working at a really, really exciting automation startup. So that's one of my favorite stories of Geektrust, and he wrote clean code, right? It was not about solving one quick problem. Yeah. Okay, so now this intent of the session is to give you an intro to clean code, because I know the concept of clean code is not super common even today, but it is very, very important. Dhanush is the CTO of Geektrust. More importantly, he's a friend, and we have known each other for about 20 years now. We started our job together back in 2003. Even today, after 18 years of being in the industry, Dhanush says, leave me alone, let me write code. Right? So Dhanush is somebody who loves to code. Even now, he's chosen a career path where he doesn't get into management and managing people. He's chosen a career path where he's still technical. He gets to build really, really good systems, etc. So without taking away more time, I'll hand it over to Dhanush to take it on from here. And once again, thank you everybody for coming here on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, thanks, Krishnan. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning, like Krishnan said. So I won't go much detailed intro into myself because Krishnan has already given a brief. Like Krishnan said, we started our careers together and started writing code from back in 2003 and still do. So let's get into the meeting. The primary agenda of the meeting is to the session is to get you introduced into clean code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a mix of a presentation and walk you through some of the code snippets which we have in our help documents. So I'll just start with the presentation. Share my screen. Are you guys all able to see this? Uh,
Yes, Dhanush.
yeah. Right. So, right. Uh, so, what does clean? Uh, how does clean code looks, and why does clean code matters? Because most of the time, you are going to write code, which not only you will be looking into. Uh, Software stays for a long time. You know, there are systems built 10 years, 15 years back, and then there are people coming in and maintaining it or adding more features onto it. So at that point of time, everybody should understand what that code looks like. So that's why clean code is very important. And what is clean code? And uh, and and like Krishna said earlier, clean code is one of the important things which we look into when we evaluate your code submissions, any code submissions, right? So Martin Fowler is one of the greats in the software industry. He has this concept where anybody can write code which the computer can understand. If any of you have done assembly language programming in your computer science course, I have done that. That's why I'm going back to that. Um, there's a lab which says microprocessor lab or something like that, wherein it's you need to just put in ones and zeros, and then you need to get through that lab and get through that process. The microprocessor will execute your code which is written in ones and zeros, and then it executes. But nobody understands that. Only the computer or the microchip can understand that, right? So similarly, even in software, when you write a code in Java or a C Sharp or Ruby, you can write any code which the computer will understand. But good programmers write code that humans will understand, because at the end of the day, it's a social environment. You work as a team. There are a lot of people looking into your code. You probably ship your code to clients, and then client will look into it. So they need to understand that code at a later stage or at that stage. So that is why clean code really matters, and we need to make sure that the code is clean, right? Now, this has happened to me many times, especially some years back when you have worked. Even now it happens sometimes when I look into code which I wrote 5 years back or 4 years back. Did I really write that code? And this is one thing which is common, and it will happen always with you, no matter how perfect your code is. As years go by and as days go by, we will see that some of the parts of the code will be written just as a hack, just as a fix, quick fix, jugad, like we all say. So we shouldn't be getting into a state where we need to think. We will be showing such expressions where, oh, did I really write this code? Okay. So that's where I'm getting to how we can reduce such such expressions and such talks that uh, did I really write this code? um, Now, fundamentals of before I get into the slides here, this most of these slides have been made via movie references. So because I love movies and I'm a movie buff myself, so I picked up and chosen to suit to the clean code um principles. First of all, the first principle is of the clean code is that it should work, right? No matter what you do, um, it should work. And this particular image is from the movie called Swades, where the hero Shah Rukh Khan does all the fixing of the water and generator and all that, and then electricity comes in, and then this lady says bijli, right? The electricity has come to her home. So similar, something similar to that. Whatever you do, at the end of the day, your code which you're shipping should work. If it is not working correctly as expected by the requirements, then it is not clean code, right? Uh, the next principle is reusability. I don't know, this is a pretty old movie. I don't know how many of you have seen this, but in this movie, Angur, which is is a famous movie from Shakespeare's play Comedy of Errors, um, which where Sanjeev where these two people, Devan Mehta and Sanjeev Kapoor, goes and as they are doubles, and then they switch between the houses. So it's similar to reusability, right? So whatever you write the code, whatever code you write, you need to ensure that that particular piece of code can be reusable, right? Because the same API or same endpoint, for example, a method like add two numbers, you can always say a plus b and then just leave it like that. Everywhere you will repeat a plus b, a plus b. But you can also write a function saying uh, you can also write a function which says add two numbers, and then it will, then people who are looking at that code will see, okay, this function will add two numbers and return me the sum. So how do you uh, come up with uh, reusable how do you ensure that the reusable reusability is used in your code, um, write reusable components. Okay. The classes, they should have appropriate behaviors and attributes. So let's take an example here. Let's take if you're writing a small game where you are let's say you are developing a game for racing, for example, right? One of the first things you might write will be a class called car or vehicle, right? And it should have its own appropriate behaviors and attributes, right? So one of the previous companies which I worked, it was in sports domain. So they had this. They used to do with player data. So, but they used to cover multiple sports, right? So how did they come up with so many classes for so many sports, right? So but so they used to have one class, one base class called player, which will have most of the details of the player, right? Name, age, date of birth, right-handed, left-handed, all those details will be there. And then so all these common behaviors are extracted out and kept as a common class, and then people will extend from that class. So cricket will have batsman or batswoman or batter. Then football will have midfielder, uh, defender, things like that. You know, so we need to, when you are coming up with a solution for a problem, you need to identify the domain models and see if they can be reused by multiple implementations, right? And DRY, do not repeat yourselves, which means if you are writing a piece of code in your project, don't copy paste that code into multiple files so that it's easier. It is always easy to do that, but at the end of the day, if you change in one place, you will have to change all the places where you have copied that particular code, right? So that you have to make sure that you are not repeating yourselves. And how do you do that? You need to have better methods and functions to avoid that duplicate code, right? Write smaller functions, write smaller methods write classes which have one behavior, and organize your code in such a way that you yourselves are not repeating the same code, so that someone else is looking at a place, and then let's say, let's go back to that player thing. Player can have play. So the cricket player will, so the batsman will play the, will be doing batting, but the bowler will be bowling. So the implementation can be different, but the common play will be similar across all the all the extending classes, you know. So take care of things like that, you know. If there is anything which you feel you yourselves are copy pasting and duplicating, push that into a method, and make sure that it's accessible for other people and they can call it and get the return value. uh, the next principle of clean code is that your code should be expressive, right? um, this is this is one of the all-time great movies called Silence of the Lambs, where in which the actor, the lead actor Anthony Hopkins, comes in for a very short period of time. He's there, but he won an Oscar for that as well. But he's during that period of time, the short period of time, whenever he interacts with the audience, uh, he's too expressive, and he's like, you looking at your eyes, what his behavior is, right? So something similar to that. The code should be expressive, right? When you look at your the code which you wrote, you know it is you should know that, okay, this line means this third line means this, right? How do you do that? You need to have, first thing is, you need to have good naming conventions, which means your variables, methods, classes, functions, all of them should have uh, should be named properly, right? There's no point in naming a variable like a, b, or c, um, which happens like if you are out of the college, and a lot of these books will have variables written like that, a lot of the textbooks. But what they don't teach is, when you are in real life and working on projects, it is better that the variable namings are expressive. So you write sum is equal to number 1 plus number 2, right? And not c equal to a plus b, right? Which means, I'm just giving an example, but this can, you can put this everywhere, like methods, like for example car. Let's get back to that car and car class. Car class is good, but I cannot write if, let's say, if my method name is uh, car dot just set speed, for example, right? Car dot set speed. You don't set some speed, right? The better method naming will be car dot move. Car moves actually, rather than car dot set speed. You can set speed as 10, 20, 30, which indicates that the car is moving. But better naming convention will be move, so that it indicates that the speed of the car is changing. You know, like classes I said, you don't, a lot of people, I can show you some examples later. A lot of people do this mistake of naming classes using verbs. uh, when I say verbs, some class names can be, people might write, uh, let's take, go back to cricket player. The class name might be running, for example, okay? Which is incorrect, because the running is a behavior of the player. It should be a method, but it should not be a class. The class should be batsman, and the class should be batter, and the name, the behavior should be running, so that the they take runs, and the run properties is incremented, right? Functions and methods are the same almost, so you can do the thing. uh, the next one is, don't do any long methods or functions. The problem with long methods and functions are, you tend to uh, uh, write long methods, and then you lose the flow when you're reading the code. If it goes beyond your screen size, you lose the flow of that function or method. So a good thing will be to split them down to smaller functions which does a single thing, right? For example, if you're downloading a file and parsing it, right? You might write everything like download the file, open the file, parse the file, convert it into something else, everything in one method, rather than you can just write separate smaller functions which say download, then open, then parse, then convert. So there are 4 methods, and then you can call, anybody can call these from anywhere, right? You can just get if it is exposed appropriately, anybody can call it from anywhere, right? So that's how you make sure that your code is expressive, your code is reusable, and it also works. The next one is the code should be modular. If you remember, if you have seen this movie, Home Alone, is where a kid is left alone at his home by his parents, and 2 thieves come to for robbery, and the kid is very well organized because he has kept everything where it is, right? So you won't see a knife in the bedroom, or a food or a TV in the kitchen, right? So like a house, your code should be modular. You should appropriately group it. You should separate the concerns. All your data access code should be in one package, or your service business logic should be in another package, or your model should be in a different package, and the views can be in a different package. So all of these concerns should be separated so that they are not mingled. Uh, if you're working, for example, I don't know how many of you have worked on RESTful endpoints, but if you have, then and if you have if you're written a service, calling the database directly from that service is not a good thing, right? It is always better if you move that code to a, a, a package where you access the database, so that if that particular database access call can be reused and repurposed by different people, right? So that is about modular code. So make sure you organize your code separately. You have the models separate, the data access layer separate, the all the business logic will be separate, so that you don't need to fix things in many places. If it's a data access call issue, you can fix it in that package, not in your view package, right? So like that, like how your house should be, your code should be uh, modular. Right now, I'm getting to Geektrust badges, what we give. Um, so the badges, once you submit your code, what we look into is whether the code is working fine, which is correctness. Do you have build tool is if you build tool is 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 a tool specific to a software language, a programming language, where you can, what it does is it will compile your code, it will run the test cases, it will run create an executable out of your software, out of your code, and then help you deploy that, right? So that's what we look at build tool. Readability is the next batch we look at, which means we look at how readable your code is based on the principles which I covered so far. And last one is object modeling, where again, based on the principles I covered so far, we look at how well you have come up with software um, data models, where if they are reusable, if they are if they are make sense, like if are they modular, like for example, like let's come back to that car and car class again. Like I said earlier, set speed is a bad method, rather than move is a better method. So we look at things like that, and then award the object modeling badge. Yeah, so these are the 4 badges we are looking at for a backend problem right now. And and yeah, that's all I have on the presentation side. So we will look at the help docs, and I will show you some um, code snippets which are bad and how you can write it as, in a good way. uh, right, so if you go to help.geektrust.in, um, you can go here, earning badges, and look at uh, how to earn readability and how to earn oops badge. So I will go through these two, and then tell you how, show you how you can improve upon your code. So we had a coding problem sometime back which we deprecated. It was called coding challenge, sorry, cricket coding challenge. um, Basically the problem was to uh, you know predict runs code and print a commentary based on the probability of the people hitting a ball, right? So what are the usual suspects um, while writing readable code? uh, like I explained, one is the long methods with complex logic. you know there are a lot of if else conditions, loops, and things like that, which can cause problems. Poor variable and function names. Magic numbers are nothing but you add numbers just inside the code, which don't people don't know what it is. I'll just show you that. Incorrect language conventions. This happens when you're working with new language, and you have come up with another older language. You tend to carry that language's coding conventions to thing. You shouldn't do that. You should stick to the language's convention. And then finally, code is not modularized. So we'll look at some of these examples. And if you see this uh, piece of code, this has one main method. This sorry, for all of this code is written in Java, so that we made it like that because we stick to one language, and then Java is more widely used than others. um, so if you look into this, there is a main class, and sorry, main method. There's a tiebreaker, the tiebreaker class, which is like, the naming convention itself is not really great. And there is a main method where all the code is written there. You see, all the code is written there, and then some point of time you don't even know what this piece of code is doing, right? So instead of that, this could have been written like this. There is a tiebreaker match. There's a team which is batting, there's a team which is bowling, and there's a match actually happening. And we take in, it has a method called play innings, and match has something like simulate over. And then all those methods are appropriately split across all these classes like team, match, and so on and so forth. So you implement the actual solution, and then so similar thing, but very differently written, which is readable for everybody, right? Poor variable and function names. So some examples: player score, SCR. People will not know what you are abbreviating here, right? What is SCR? I don't even know. Player, at least I can understand that it's a player, right? A lot of the SMS lingo which gets into this is not correct. I mean, it should be avoided. Uh, so just see this now, name of players team. It can be just named as team name, right? So these kind of things you need to look into. And player object array, you don't need that. It can be just players, right? So these are some of the examples where in which you go with better naming conventions, and then you can write cleaner code. Magic numbers, right? If password dot length is greater than 7. Now imagine this. what is the 7, right? You don't know what it is exactly, right? When you look at that number, this number can be anything. And if you had to change this, you have to change it, like let's say to 10. Where do we go and change? Instead, this can be converted into a constant and just set as max password size, right? So then it makes sense. That code makes sense, which means that okay, password.length should not be greater than max password size, you know. So things like that, incorrect language conventions, which is like, um, so constant in Ruby would be like this, and a class will be like written like this. So follow those conventions. For example, Python uses snake case, and Java use mix of camel case. So when you're bringing snake case into Java, then it doesn't look good, right? That is not how the Java language convention say it should be in camel case. uh, Non-modularized code, right? Um, so this piece of code, it is very, you know, he's getting the team, first team, then getting out status as 0. This is a case where the person has got out, and this is where it is not got out, right? So instead of writing a whole thing, you can just come up with a method which says update player status, and then pass in a variable like out, then update commentary, and otherwise update the score and update the commentary. Similar to this, but you know, this could have been done better. Actually, this could have been but done much better here. This can be put out, and then you can write one update commentary as a single thing. This is something which we missed out. So here there is a duplication of code if you look into that, right? So things like that, we need to do, which will make the code more readable and maintainable, and which will make you think, this is a good clean code, and somebody who's coming in can always address it. Okay. uh, Now let's look at the other model, sorry, other badge, which is called oops badge. It's the same object modeling. We call it oops internally, so that's why that naming convention is there. uh, what are the usual suspects? Writing code that is procedural. Just excuse me once. uh, so procedural code means you write everything in one class, one function. If it's in Java, you write everything in main. If it's in Python, you write everything under one file. No classes, no methods. So that makes very difficult to maintain. So you see the same thing, run class, run main. This whole thing can be changed like to like this game, team one, team two. This I showed already innings, which makes the code look better, maintainable, readable, and all those things. All your object models reusable, everything. This helps. Whereas this code is not reusable at all, right? Classes created without any behavior or less behavior. So many times we create classes with just properties and then write setters and getters on it, and we are done with it, right? This is totally okay in case where you are using it as a value object and a data transfer object. It makes sense. You need to write these objects to convert from JSON to Java class, or JSON XML to Java class, wherever it is. Just have get answers. But when you go into core domain model, it becomes hard, right? It needs to have some behavior associated with it, right? um, right. So let's say the same batsman class which I wrote here. This batsman class has a behavior called play, which increases the balls runs scored and the balls played, right? Now and then give only getters to access the runs and balls played, rather than don't give not giving out anything. The next thing is where there are classes which doesn't represent the real world, right? So this guy has, for example, this is a class where which is said match lost. Again, coming back to nouns and verbs classes, domain model should be named um, using nouns and not using verbs. So match loss doesn't make any sense, right? You have a lot of code here. Instead, that it is a state of the match. Match is the real world domain model, and then add the state as a property of that match, like lost, won, draw, right? You can do that. Wrong behavior in the class. Um, you can have good classes and behavior and methods and all that, but if that behavior is incorrect, then it doesn't make sense, right? So if you look at here, right, this is a cricket match class. It has play, it has play over, it has print bold commentary, it's handle and print wicket commentary. A lot of things are there, right? It doesn't make sense at all. Why should the commentary be related to match, right? Why should the match be printing the commentary, right? So for that, we need to come up with better, uh, sorry, here, better classes. Um, So I have game, team one. I will also have commentary and innings, and split the whole thing into game dot play rather than putting match dot play and everything here. I will also have a class called scorecard. I'll also have a class called commentary, which will do their own job. Right? Breaking encapsulation. Uh, this is basically uh, the principle behind this is uh, you need to you shouldn't allow others to set the state of your object, right? Other classes to set state of your object. So for example, you see this set player name, somebody else, some other class which is initializing player class can set the player name, and then your change, the original changes are overridden. So you shouldn't do that, like set current score. Instead you should write behaviors to manipulate the state, right? So if you see here, this is the same code. I don't have setters and getters here. uh, it is just a play, and the runs are returned from here. So I'll play the ball, get set the runs, and then that runs is returned. So you know how many runs you have scored for that particular ball, right? Uh, then law of delimiter says that A should not get to reach object B directly, like you know um, so you will say A dot get B dot method B. Instead of that, you can just say, you can just reuse like this, where player and team are known to each other, and then they talk, rather than doing player dot get team dot get score dot update runs. It can be just player dot update runs, which will internally call the team, and team will update the runs. So things like that. The next one is usage of static methods. Breaks object-oriented concepts, because object-oriented concepts means static methods are at the class level and not at the object scope, right? It is always, static methods are always defined in class scope and not in object scope. So that's the difference. So try to convert all these methods into behavioral methods inside the classes. So here you see game static start and then game dot play. Instead of that, we'll just have game dot play. Play is a behavior inside game, and not something like start with the static. um, One class doing too many things. So this is called single responsibility principle, which is one of the core fundamentals of OOPS, where you have to say one class, one responsibility. You shouldn't be doing too many things. One class should not be doing too many things. Um, so if you see again, cricket match has a lot of these things. what I'll do is then again I split cricket match to team, weighted random number generator, all those things, and split it appropriately. And which means that each class does its own behavior, and then you put together a solution where you can simulate the cricket match problem. That should be your goal when you write any software project in your company or in your work. So that's all I had with respect to showcasing the book clean code thing. We also have build scripts help document, but this is fairly easy. You can just read through it. Usually for Java we have Maven as a build tool. For Ruby, there is Rake, Bundler, and all those things. So this is fairly easy and you can read upon it. So I just want, and that's also not really a part of clean code, but of course it will help. But the core, I just want to touch upon the core fundamentals of clean code. So I've shown you that. I've shown you how good code looks and bad code looks. So uh, you can judge upon that. Um, yeah, so that's mostly I want to convey. I think I'll stop the share here, and Nikita can take it over.
Yeah, thank you, Dhanush. That was a very informative session. So we do have a lot of questions from our participants. I
Yeah.
will take them one by one. So the
All right.
first question is from Naeem. He says writing clean code with imperative style is easier, but the moment reactive and functional code seep in, the clean code begins to wear out. How to write clean code with Rxfw?
Yeah, that's the functional reactives is a beast on its own. So we get a lot of code submissions like that, and what I tend to tell people is always, even if it's functional or reactive, you can write smaller methods and then smaller functions which are understandable by people, rather than sometimes the function itself will go one function inside another function. Then you need to find a balance. It is very difficult, and uh, reactive programming is getting picked up, functional programming is getting picked up a lot. But there are people who say that I read this read this article long time back where there was this company who are using Scala, and they were using reactive style programming, functional programming in Scala, and then something broke over the weekend, and the guy who used to maintain that code was not there in the office. He was on a vacation, and none of them could touch upon that code and understand what it does, right? And then those guys moved to some other programming language which is more flexible in that sense. But these are now two what do you say, paradigms of programming. uh, Functional can tend to be non-readable and all, but I feel we can just still have smaller methods, better naming conventions, and then still things can still be you know managed. That's all I can say now.
I hope
Yep.
that answers your question, Naeem. So the next question is from Prashant. He asks, is there any tool to test code quality?
um, yeah, as of now I think we are building Coder.ai, but it's not available uh, uh, to the to developers, as in developers can get to know through Geektrust. So once you submit your code in Geektrust, code evaluates it and tells the whether code is readable or not. But other outside that, I don't know. Krishnan, have you come across anything which you're
See, I think for static code analysis, SonarQube and all works pretty well. But for clean code, right, there is no product which can actually automatically look at your code and tell you. There are linters and all that help. But for what we are talking about, for ability to write really good clean code, there are no automated tools yet. We are working on some.
Thank you. So the next question is again from Prashant. He asks if is there a document to understand the coding standard depending on the programming language?
Yeah, most of the coding. Let me understand the question is about how to know coding standards of a specific language, right? If so, there are documents like, for example, Golang has a document which says how you should write the code. It is called Effective Go. I think Python has a I forgot its name. Python has a document which says how you should write Python code. Um, yeah, Java of course will have. Yeah, if that was the question, yeah, I think that's all.
He says it's for he's asking for Node.js.
Right. Node.js, JavaScript has different coding standards, right? Not coding standard. That's in, JavaScript has different ways in which you can uh, write a particular thing. Like for example, creating an object can be done in many ways, right? So I would suggest you to read effective JavaScript or eloquent JavaScript, uh, which has good concepts covered. There is also another book called JavaScript's The Good Parts, which will have these things covered. So when you do it in JavaScript, you can always take it to Node.js, right? But I don't know whether with the new ES6 and ES7 things coming up, I don't know whether that is all covered in those books. These books are a little old, but maybe there is a better edition that has come.
Right. The next question is from Aishwarya. She asks when we come to front end challenges like Angular or React, how do we follow clean code?
Right. So the concept is same, Aishwarya, because write modular code, write lower level components. Angular. When you create an Angular app or a React app, I think it comes up with a package structure, so that helps you. But identify the components, right? If you look at our coding problem for UI, which is finding Falcon and admin UI, uh, the you can identify lower level components from that, and then write write out those components and then build together everything together at the end of it, right? So that's how you'll probably write code that is modular, readable, maintainable, and all. So people can look at one component rather than one big HTML CSS file, right, and identify where things went wrong.
Right. The next one is from Sandesh. He says, what is the weightage for each of these badges?
The weightage is same for most all those badges, if that was what you meant. Yeah, but we tend to give we tend to consider ourselves as readability as a paramount of all the badges. So if you get readability, you will get, your code will fall in place, and then things will be good.
Right. We have the next question from Vikas. He says, apart of controlling method names through interface abstraction, do we have any other methodology to control the naming conventions?
So naming conventions, you don't need to control. I'm not sure if I understood the controlling part. It is mostly it's about how you name your methods and interfaces and classes and all that. It's about how you come up with the names. So I mean, naming a class or method is the hardest thing to do. Yeah, I know that. It is still a hard thing for me to do. You know, some generic concept which we follow is classes should be named as nouns, the method should be named as verbs. So like I said earlier, player and plays, right? Or bats, something like that. um, yeah, there's no nothing like controlling. Yeah, if you write interfaces and then you can force the implementations to use the same naming convention, but it is all just part of the uh, work culture or the dev team culture which you build in a company. You know, you should follow these conventions, you should follow this um, style. A lot of people use linters, custom linters, which will help you do this. So you can have a Java linter or a JavaScript linter, and then it will when you write in your ID, it will it will show that this part of your code doesn't follow the standards of your company or things like that. So such things you can do.
Sure. The next question is from Arka. It says, how is TDD or BDD related to clean code?
Yeah. So before TDD, let me talk about unit tests first, right? Unit tests are written to ensure that your code works at the lowest level, at the unit level, right? If you're adding two numbers, 1 plus 2 should return 3 always, no matter what you pass in, no matter how many times you run in. If you pass in 1 and 2, it should always return 3. That's what your unit test is. When you write unit test and cover almost like, let's say, 70 to 80% of your code, uh, it means that your code is covered, and or at the lower level it won't break. Anything new will not break because you're writing unit tests, right? Which automatically ensure that your code is modular, your code is readable. You have split your functions to separate sorry, you have split your long methods to smaller functions. You have unit tested it separately, right? And this can be taken to TDD also. BDD, I'm not sure. I've not followed that. I've never worked in such organizations where BDD is followed. But TDD, yeah, I have. In TDD, what we do is before writing the implementation, we write the test case first, right? So if let's take it the sum of two numbers as example. Add can take two numbers, but you won't write the implementation. You will write the test first, right? And in test, you say you pass in add 1 comma 2, and then see what happens. Write the test and see what happens. Because there is no implementation there, your test will fail, right? You test for various scenarios like pass in null, pass in empty number, pass in negative number. You write all those tests, and all the tests will fail. Then you write the implementation and then fix all your tests, right? So that is the only difference between TDD and writing unit tests. Some people tend to write do unit tests later, and some people follow TDD first. So there are both pros and cons for both approaches. Depends upon your like what you prefer basically.
Right. So, Dhanush, we have a lot of questions on our evaluation process, code evaluation process. If you could just sum up in a brief, short points about our evaluation process, so I'm sure those questions would be answered.
Sorry, what was that, Nikita? I missed the last one.
So, we have a lot of questions on our code evaluation process,
Yeah.
how we evaluate the code. So, if you could just give a short snippet on the process, that would answer a lot of questions.
All right.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
Dhanush, if I can add to that,
yeah.
if we can also talk about how people should go about solving the coding challenge, look at the build file, input, output, that would also be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So first of all, what you have to read, what you have to do is read the problem completely, properly, uh, and identify what are the domain models out of it, right? Uh, Look at the problem and see. When I say models are real world objects, right? Any problem will have real world objects. For example, in our cricket problem which we retired, there is batsman, there is player, there is bowler, there's a team, there's a match. So identify such things, right? Once you have identified it, like in a pen and paper, once you have identified, code it up, right? Once you have coded it, uh, you can test your solutions on Geektrust for input output, right? You can upload the code, go to submit code page, upload the code, select your tools and all, and then test it. Now, there's also one more thing to add. It's a build script. So I will stick to Java here because I think maybe Java is mostly used, but and I'll also touch upon Python or Node.js, whatever. So in Java, Maven and Gradle are the standard build tools, right? You can even avoid build tools and just go without it, but you will not get that badge. That's all, right? Um, Now when you run Maven, when you add a Maven project, when you create a Maven project and do all those things, run the commands to create a Maven project from Eclipse or IntelliJ, it will create a structure for you. You just need to add the code and you just need to follow our build instructions for the Maven or for Gradle, whatever build tool you're choosing, right? Once you do that, you can come to the submit code page, come do run test to see whether your IO is passing, how readable your code is. We tell you all those things. If it is not, if it's bad, go back and work on it, fix all the IO, fix the naming conventions, fix whether there are long methods, things like that, and then try again. And once you submit the code, what we do is we get take a look at it and check for the IO, check for the build, see how readable it is. Something which we do not entertain at all is like writing everything in one file, right? People just write geektrust.java and then submit the code, which makes it very difficult for us to read and give an evaluation. So we and the readability will be bad. So avoid that, you know. Uh, so we look at all these things, and then when we go to the we have an internal tool which where we give the evaluations, and then that evaluation will be done. Um, for UI submissions, we look at different things. Uh, from the backend, we look at of course how the components are defined, how are the lower level components implemented. Uh, is the code modular enough? Is the code readable? Readability again goes back to whether others can understand. Is there a build tool? Because most of the UI thing, there will be a lot of dependencies, right? So have you used a dependency manager? So those kind of things we check. And yeah, is your code mobile responsive? Do you have good naming conventions for your HTML, CSS components, right? Uh, Things like that we always look at. I hope I answered that. Is there anything which I need to add, Christian, if you remember? Uh,
So, Dhanush, there is one question which has come up a couple of times. Maybe you can comment on that. That is around how important is design patterns in
right,
writing clean code.
right. So yeah, design patterns are important. They will help in coming up with a better solution, which will, which is a pattern based. So you have solutions for specific things, right? So if you want to create an object, you follow a factory pattern or something like that. So that will help. Of course, that will add, that will make the code more readable, modular. You know, it will help. Uh, yeah.
Perfect. So, with that,
Yes.
I think we've answered more or less all the questions, and we've come to an end of the session. Um, so, Krishan, would you like to add on something?
Yeah. So, thanks, Nikita. So, I think there are a few questions that we have missed around how does Node.js work with OOPS and all of that. So, we'll either cover that in our next session, or feel free to mail us. You can mail us at help@geektrust.in, and we'll get back to you with your answers to your specific questions. I want to thank Dhanush. I think that was a really good session on a Saturday morning. I can hear his kids knocking on the door behind him. So thanks for taking the time out. And thanks, Nikita, again. I just want to let you all know what we are planning to do as a next step. So we have an event on July 17th, which is the One Code event. This event is primarily meant for people looking for backend and front end and full stack jobs. We will have 10 to 15 companies participate in this event. At least 10 of them will come for this event as well. In the morning session, they will come and they will talk about what do they offer in terms of opportunities, what do they look for in candidates. We will have some sessions discussing about whether clean code, how important is clean code, or we will also talk about whether how important are engineering degrees in being a good software developer, etc. So you can expect a very interactive, short 30-45 minute session next week. Post the session, we will launch a new coding problem, which you have to solve and complete. The deadline is by 8 p.m. that same day. Follow the principles which Dhanush said, and you should be all good. Once you write this code and you clear the submission and the evaluation, from the next week onwards, we will line up the interviews. So that's the overall process of how it starts. I read somebody's question asking about a competition. It is not a competition. We believe that you're competing only with yourself, right? We are not competing with each other. Try and improve your code. When your code gets to a level where it is good, clean code, then we will connect you with relevant companies and the relevant opportunities. We have opportunities for Geektrust is primarily a platform for people with 2 to 20 years of experience, but we do have fresher openings too. So write code, and then based on how your code is, we'll connect you. Some of the other questions which coming in, you can solve the language, you can solve the problem in any language of your choice. That is why we showed it in Java, because it is very common. But if you're comfortable, Python, Ruby, C#, whatever it is, you can go ahead and submit your code. Yes, I think if your code is good, we will help you connect with companies, even if you have a gap or any of that. Yeah, sure. You can attend the event even if you're not looking for a job. 100%, you can come in and participate. That's not a problem.
Just want to add on the languages bit. We cover 6 languages for automated code testing, which is Java, C#, Node.js, Ruby, Python, and Go. Anything else, like if you can submit in Kotlin or C++. Anything else, we take a look at the IO. We check it manually outside of the system. So only for 6 languages we have automated the code so that you get a feedback immediately.
For those who are not registered for the session, yes, just go to our site geektrust.in. At the top there is a banner which says One Code Weekend. You can go and register there. Yes, it is specifically for front-end, back-end, and full-stack jobs. We do have other job openings on Geektrust. For that, you can directly go and apply for those positions. But the event is meant for people looking for back-end, full-stack, and front-end jobs. Yeah, I think there are some questions like CTC and all of that. All of that, we have like 100+ positions overall. So you can go and see for the individual companies what are the positions which match you. And with that, I think we are at the end of the event. Thank you, everybody who's come. Hope to see you for the July 17th One Code Week. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye.